Good afternoon, people out there. My name is Darius Pickett. I am the third vice chair of the Marion County Democratic Party. But right now, I'm speaking to you on this cold Saturday morning. It was supposed to be snowing like crazy, but it's looking like it's either deferred or maybe different changes. But nonetheless, I'm coming to you not from my party platform, but from my personal platform. I wanted to come here and just center everybody. There's been a lot of conversation about the data center coming to Marion County under the code name Project Liberty. And, I wanted to kind of give people, because there's been plenty of times where I talked to somebody about it and they were saying, honestly, I have no idea what a data center is, whether it's good or bad. So this video is not to convince you about how you should feel about it, but it is telling you the nuanced realities of a data center and what that might look like in a context of a county like Marion County, which is different than a lot of places. So without further ado, we're going to jump right into the video, and it's just going to be a brief discussion about the data centers, the impacts that it may bring, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So before we can even argue about whether the data center is good or bad for Marion County, first we need to be clear about what a data center is and what it isn't. Because there's been a lot of fear, and it's definitely a national issue at this point. So there's going to be attached speculation and truthfully a lot of distraction. Some of the concerns are fair and some are hyperbolized. But none of that is the core issue. And by the end of this video, you'll understand the core issue of the data centers. An AI data center exists because of the explosion of artificial intelligence that we use now in our regular society. Every time you type a prompt into ChatGPT, every time someone generates an AI image or video, every time an AI powered system processes information, data is created. And that data has to be stored somewhere so it can be processed, retrieved, and reused. At its core, an AI data center is a massive storage and processing facility for data. The easiest way to understand it is to think about your own personal computer. Over time, everything you do adds data: files, programs, photos, cached information. Eventually, you run out of space and you need a hard drive or a USB flash drive to clear some room in your computer. AI data centers are essentially the industrial version of the USB drive. They don't sell products to local residents, they don't provide services directly to the community. They exist to store and move data for companies powering AI systems all over the country. Now, is that a useful service? Absolutely. I mean, AI, people use ChatGPT for everything from writing emails to scripts to legal documents, and not just ChatGPT. There are XAI and Grok, and there's just so many different avenues with artificial intelligence these days. So, yes, it is useful, and it is, in a way, good for Marion County to be part of what they call the tech bubble of AI, you know, because they've got to pay for creation of the systems of the AI and they've got to pay for the storage of that data. So in a way, it is good to bring, they're going to spend the money on finding storage for their data anyway. So in a way, it's good that we get something from that with this AI boom going on. And also along that lines, is it essential to the modern economy? Yes, it's essential because the more and more we use AI, the more we will see creative ways for companies to have to store all this massive amount of data that they're taking on. And just recently, there was conversations at X. Elon Musk is actually looking at trying to put data centers in space because obviously there's not a lot of pushback and whatnot. So, all that to say, it's absolutely useful. It's absolutely essential to the modern economy. But usefulness doesn't automatically mean economic development on a local scale. Now, let's talk about why the location matters where they're putting the data center. Where a data center is built matters just as much as what it does. In places like Matthews, North Carolina, data centers cause backlash because they were built near residential areas where land is limited and growth is already happening. That's not what's happening here. This facility is likely not going to be built in a residential area. In fact, South Carolina is moving towards legislation that would require data centers to be located strictly in industrial zones. From a land use standpoint, Marion County makes sense because it's rural, it's more spread out, and it's not under developmental pressure. That's the benefit. But that benefit cuts both ways. Why do rural counties get picked for data centers? Well, because data centers don't go where growth is already happening. They go where growth is not in the way. They're looking for cheap land, low population density, minimal competing development, and limited political resistance, especially that last part. That makes Marion County attractive to any AI company that wants to set up a data center here. It does not automatically make the project attractive to Marion County because a county that needs workforce development, incubation, and locally circulating money is not helped by a project that is deliberately isolated from the local economy. Now, let's have the dreaded resources conversation. So, based on public statements, it's looking like each building is going to be roughly be using 7,000 gallons of water a day. With 6 buildings, that's about 42,000 gallons daily. South Carolina relies heavily on groundwater systems, including those connected to Grand Strand. And, for reference as well, that amount of usage is similar to an entire industrial park. The difference is an AI tech center is kind of just one building that has as much need for resource as an entire industrial park. But going back to the rainwater, we rely heavily on rainwater, which comes through our municipal utilities company called Grand Strand Water Sewer Authority. So it's reasonable to ask, at what level of industrial draw does it mean long term, especially for Marion County's farmers who rely on groundwater for irrigation and livestock? Farmers deserve to know whether this impacts availability, pressure, or future water rates. It's also fair to ask whether increased industrial demand could eventually translate into higher water costs for residents or agricultural users. Those are legitimate questions. On power, the data center reportedly has its own agreement with a utility provider. Hopefully, that power is renewable and does not impact local rates or grid reliability, but those concerns ultimately still do matter. But I'm going to tell you, they are not the core issue. Even if every environmental concern were resolved tomorrow, the deal would still be flawed. And let me tell you how. Let's talk about the real issue, the FILOT. That stands for fee in lieu of tax payment. A fee in lieu of tax payment is a strategic economic development tool. It exists to attract industries that will eventually pay the community back through jobs, commerce, sales tax, local procurement, or long-term integration. When used correctly, it's an investment in circulation. Let me explain what I mean by all of this talk. So, the state of South Carolina passed a law where a county government can incentivize a company to come into their county to work in exchange for basically a discount on their property taxes. So the idea is that if you want a specific industry so bad to come to your county, you offer them an incentive in paying less taxes, and then they pay you back, not literally, but they continue to buy their uh, services whenever they need electrical services. They do it locally. Whenever they need to go to lunch, they go locally. If they have to cater their staffing events, they do it all locally. they pay back into the ecosystem. And it's even better when they can employ people from the community. Because, so yes, we did give them this tax discount on property taxes, but in return, we received our people getting employed. Sometimes companies even will do things like humanitarian efforts, donate to schools and things like that to kind of add to the benefit of them coming into the town. So basically, the idea of a fee in lieu of tax payment is that yes, we're giving you a discount, but we hope that you're paying us back in, economic developmental ways. So, but bringing it back to the AI data centers, these deals do not circulate. The argument being made is that the company is investing millions of dollars in infrastructure. And because that money is being spent here, it counts as investments in the county. And that's a decent argument, but let's think about what it's really saying. Because according to South Carolina state law, a county government has to have received at least $2.5 million in investments in order to proceed with a fee in lieu of tax payment. Now, with that being true, that's just an investment in dollars, meaning ideally, because these tech centers, like I said, they take a massive amount of resource to put together and to maintain. They're going to have to do construction. They're going to have to build this building. They're going to have to spend money to come here. So that can be considered the investment that they're using to come here to earn their fee in lieu of tax payment. Well, here's the problem. That infrastructure is private, closed loop, and it's non-transferable. It doesn't train local workers. It doesn't incubate new businesses. It does not support local agriculture. It doesn't attract population growth because Marion County is bleeding residents. It does not also generate any sales tax or hospitality tax because it's not a service or a product that's being provided to people that they're buying. It's more so supporting greater efforts in the country, but Marion County itself gets little to nothing in return. Calling that community investment is like calling a private well a public utility just because it sits on local land. Now let's talk about the job expectation. Reportedly, roughly 60 jobs are expected to come with this AI tech data center. Most of these jobs will likely require specialized or college level training that many residents of Marion County simply do not have the access to. These jobs are not designed to lift the local workforce. They're obviously designed to be filled from outside the county, whether that be from moving people into the county or having them commute here. That's not a moral failure, it's just a structural reality. And the reality matters when you're deciding whether to give away tax revenue. Now, it's also important to mention why tech data centers are so attractive to politicians. Data centers look incredible on paper. You see huge investment numbers, you see clean buildings, buzzwords like AI and technology. Behind the scenes, counties compete aggressively to land these projects because they signal relevance and momentum, especially in places desperate to look economically competitive, like Marion County. That's how you end up with projects wrapped in code names for, I don't know if you know this, but this project actually came about under the code name Project Liberty until the special election on January 6th, where it got a little bit more public, but this was wrapped up the entire time purposely. But it's not because our leaders are evil, but slowing down the process would have forced harder questions. And as we're seeing right now, the AI tech center debate is not cut and dry. You know, I'll leave it at that. So, really, this AI tech debate drives one majorly begging question. Do we want economic development that stores data, or do we want local economic development that develops people in Marion County? In a larger, wealthier county, this would just be a harmless addition, another line on the balance sheet. Marion County is not in that position. This county needs incubation and not asset parking. It needs businesses that grow from here, hire from here, and circulate their money here, including investments that strengthen local agriculture instead of competing with it. Now, to wrap it up, I am not anti data center. We need them. Physically, literally, our society is so dependent on AI that it will be almost impossible not to have these facilities pop up, so they have to go somewhere. So I'm not anti data center. I am anti using fees in lieu of tax payment for economic projects that have no potential for getting return on that investment, because we're losing out on tax revenue expecting to get something back. But a tech center is not something that will produce local incubation and economic development. At best, it helps their parent company, but it doesn't help anything in Marion County. In this case, the fee in lieu of tax payment does not serve its intended purpose. It doesn't build capacity, it doesn't create pathways, and it doesn't integrate into the community. It doesn't necessarily sell us out, but it does take a deal that does not benefit us. And if we keep doing that, Marion County will never be developed. It'll just keep getting sold. So that was the full as it can be right now story on the AI Tech Center, aka Project Liberty in Marion County, South Carolina. I personally will be doing more research about the effects that it'll have on agricultural outputs. I'll also be researching, the true expectations that our leaders see coming from this fee in lieu of tax payment. It would be really interesting to understand why they think that the numbers add up to where we should be losing so much, even up to some fee in lieu of tax payments are up to 40% of their property taxes. So it's a big gamble that you usually will only do to bring in the kind of investment that will really cause, an uproar of economic development. Just real quickly, an example, maybe a company that helps develop young professional people wants to come into Marion County and establish a professional workplace center where they sell clothes and do trainings and things like that, mock interviews. That's the kind of investment that creates more money in the future, because you are teaching a generation of people how to sustain themselves and make their own money by being here in Marion County. So that person that started their own nail salon business, she can procure her supplies from the local nail supply store, or the local person who wants to be more than a caterer, they want to start a restaurant. That person doesn't have to look at Horry County, Dillon County, or other counties to be a more profitable market. And there could even be ways where there are certain investments where our business leaders could learn how to make things more accessible to the everyday person in Marion County. I'm saying all this yapping just to say that there are so many opportunities to get actual economic development that pays back your return on investment. I don't see how an AI tech data center that doesn't provide anything, that doesn't produce any services or products, will be able to pay us back for the amount that we will be losing in those property taxes. And I do believe that this is just a good looking effort, but unfortunately, we need more than good looking efforts. We need actual plans and strategies to not just bring people here, but create growth and economic development here in Marion County alone. So again, I thank you for watching this video. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment on this video, message me on Facebook. I have Instagram. However you need to reach me, I am so happy to talk to people. I'm glad to hear that people are so invested in this issue, and I can't wait to see where it goes from here, because some towns have successfully run off a tech center project even after it was submitted and approved. So I can tell you right now, if you have your reservations about this data center, do not stop researching, do not stop asking questions. Just do it respectfully and make sure that you know what you're saying before you put the information out. So with that being said, this is the end of this video, and thank you for watching. You guys have a great rest of your weekend.